So you're a financial advisor at Northwestern Mutual. So like, tell us about you. What's a normal day look like typically? How are you helping people? How'd you get into Northwestern? Like, tell us about you.
Of course. I think a typical day in an advisor's shoes would just, the whole goal is to help people, right? Or to provide an impact in their financial lives. And that's their current financial well-being, but their future well-being, and also when they're not here, what is the generational or legacy plan to help them? So a lot of my practice is just focus on impact, but of course a typical day is getting in the office early, prepping for the day, doing case prep, do internal or team meetings to really go over, okay, what clients are coming in today, this week, making sure everything's prepped and prepared. And then from there, we're in a meeting or we're on the phones, talking to clients or getting into more meetings.
So tell me about legacy plan. Like, what is that? Like, expand. What does that mean?
Yeah. So I think our planning approach is to a plan for 3 generations, right?
Okay.
So there's a lot of research and studies out there that wealth only lasts 3 generations, right? And
what?
A lot of that, exactly.
What?
Right?
What's the study?
Yeah. So
What?
a lot of that, it's a business Harvard study, but a lot of that is due to taxes, is why wealth only lasts 3 generations. So taxes, division, and mismanagement, right?
Okay.
And some of that is just the financially literate education just isn't available to everyone, right? And so when we meet with clients...
And this is the management portion.
That's right.
So go through the management portion. Like, where is this mismanaged most often?
Yeah, I think it's just the lack of the education and understanding and just paralysis analysis. There's so many options out there, so many investments, and so people can just get hit like a deer in the headlights and just not know where to go, who to trust, etc. Right? Yeah. So I think our approach is to talk with clients about their planning currently, and then also what they want in the future and how to align with that. But then, of course, our team is competent and educated on legacy planning, estate tax, and so when we do leave this earth, what are the ramifications of leaving money in retirement accounts or investment accounts or leaving real estate or any insurance planning.
Yeah.
So we really take a deep dive with clients on how does your planning waterfall and impact multiple generations to come.
Yeah, so LaVoi Financial Group, that's a new DBA. Congratulations, by the way. That's awesome. So how do you guys go about helping people manage better? Like, how do you figure out what exactly they need to do based on the goals? Like, what are some options that you normally take people through? And then tell me more about division and taxes too. Like, I'm just so curious. Like, walk me through each one of those on the legacy planning that you guys do.
Yeah, of course. So our client experience, I think, just first starts with a very introductory and seeking to understand discussion, right? I think a lot of advisors in our space, they miss the boat because, they're quick to try to sell a return or pitch a product without really understanding the client and what they really want, right? So we do a discovery meeting or a fact-finding meeting up front to just really understand the client's story, why they do what they do, and really what they want to achieve or what the dream is, right? And I think all of us share a dream of financial peace and just eliminating financial stress, right? And so that's a broad commonality across all different net worth levels, is just how do we drive more financial peace in our lives, right? So that would be an initial meeting with the client, and then from there we're going to have maybe 1 to 2 more strategy meetings where we're really going through their current planning, looking at projecting, and just trying to find efficiencies or strategies to help them get what they want.
Yeah, because you'll break down what different retirement planning, midterm. You do all that type of stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. You break it down. Right. So what about divisions? So tell me about the other 2 legacy things. So you're planning on the management side, helping them understand where to put the money, whatever portfolios is end up being specific to them. I know we can't talk about those on a video.
That's right.
Just per some of these laws or whatever, so you don't have to go into the specifics. But so what happens in division? What do you see in those 3 years of a family, right, losing losing its hard-earned wealth in 3 generations. Like, what's the division type stuff that you see?
That's right. So I think the first part of division, just take a family that has 2 children or multiple children, and let's say this family, has real estate, right? And the real estate, maybe they put it in a living trust for the kids or something like that.
Which a living trust is, describe that really quick for everybody, because I don't think everybody knows what a living trust is. So could you just explain what that is?
Yeah.
Why you would do that?
Of course. So a living trust really helps direct assets that don't have a direct beneficiary to go, to a natural person immediately.
Okay.
Right? And so that could be really anything, that doesn't have a direct beneficiary, right? So the main thing is real estate, right? Or businesses or things like that. And so where people miss the mark on division is just lack of really estate planning or thinking through, how do I want this asset to distribute, right? But let's go back to the example. You've got 2 kids, there's real estate holdings. Let's say one child is in business and loves real estate as an investment, but then the other child just wants their cash, right? Mm-hmm. And so, the generation, they could end up just selling the real estate and splitting the proceeds, right? Mm-hmm. And so that just turns it to cash, but that divides the wealth.
Right, but the living trust is basically the entity that manages it. It's like a legal entity.
That's correct.
And there's like some lawyers doing something to make sure it goes to the right people. So that way you don't have somebody saying, well, I want all the money, right?
That's right.
That's the value of having a living trust. Is there there's tax benefits too?
So it depends. It depends on the asset that would go into the trust or how you pass on the wealth.
Most common ones.
Right. So real estate, when people pass, if the real estate's appreciated from $500,000 to $1 million, upon passing, that basis is going to be $1 million. That way, if it was sold, then there's not a big capital gains implication. There's non-qualified accounts. That's just like stock money or investment money that's liquid that you can buy or sell or just touch. Mm-hmm. And so there's a step up in basis there. But then depending on the asset, there's going to be tax consequences or maybe spin down laws for the next generation on those types of accounts.
I don't know if you can answer this, but I'm going to ask it. Does a living trust help eliminate the death tax? This is a point of confusion, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. So I think the same way I would answer it to a client is when we really get into the trust and estate planning, that's where an estate planning attorney comes in, mm-hmm. right? So with a lot of clients, I'll go meet with the estate planning attorney with them because we're helping manage the finances.
Help them find a good attorney and all that kind of stuff. And the attorney's setting that up. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
But generally that is what the process you go through to avoid a huge, massive death tax penalty and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Cool, okay, so the division, do a living trust.
Yeah.
Well, that's generally a rule. That's really. Yeah. I'm sure there's many more based on how. So tax planning. How do you go through 3 years of tax planning? I mean, living trust seems like one of them, or like the attorneys. But walk me through that.
I love that. I'm glad you got some caffeine for all this exciting
stuff.
So,
this is awesome. I love talking about this stuff.
So I think tax planning. There's all different types of tax, right? Income tax, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, estate tax, gift tax.
Oh, man.
So the tax, state income, federal income, Social Security. So the tax, the tax ledger goes on and on,
when
right?
do you think the O2 tax will happen?
We'll see. I don't know. But anyway, so I think applicable to business owners or folks like you, Joe, and the people you work with. I think it's just understanding your income tax and how do you make more income but be strategic to pay less, right, to the IRS. And so that would be getting familiar with again, not a CPA, we go sit in CPA offices with clients too, but getting a CPA is very fundamental, to just your tax planning. But back to the point, there's deductions, there's depreciation, there's tax credits, there's pre-tax retirement account investing. So there's a lot of things where you could reduce your tax today, right? And so when we think about tax, we just want to think of it like this. There's tax we pay today, right? On income we earn or investments we realize, etc. So there's the tax today, and then there's the tax tomorrow, right? When we withdraw money from accounts in the future, or we withdraw money, how are those accounts taxed, right? And so those are going to be the two parts of tax we deal with while we're on this planet, right? And then when we leave, then that's where the inheritance tax, gift tax, all the generational tax that passes through to the next generation. That's when that comes in.
Gotcha. Okay, right. Awesome. That's called a hearty approach.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome, man. So, can you share like a little bit of how this has actually like played out with your clients? So, maybe one person that you've really like gone through this. You're only one generation. I'm assuming you've not lived through 3 generations, but like a client or two that's just been so impactful. Some of the things that you've done with them to really see the fulfillment of some of the planning that you've done. Yeah.
Well, I think a simple one is a client that runs a real estate brokerage business, and she grosses north of $2 million of revenue, and just, I guess, very simple. We just help her tactically invest money for her retirement, and it ends up saving her $30,000 of tax credits, where she doesn't have to pay that money to the IRS, right? So that's just kind of one easy business owner thing, pre-tax deductions, where you save money for your retirement and it reduces the tax that you would have to pay to the IRS.
Nice.
Right? So that's kind of one client stories, but there's many of those clients where we're doing that every single year for them, right? Yeah. And that would be on, getting more tax deductions or lowering their taxable income, through investing and planning, right? I guess another client story is just, I had a young client he was 23, got married, and, got into a hit and run accident on his honeymoon and had brain aneurysms and ended up passing away. And luckily he did some of that generational or legacy planning and, had life insurance. And of course that was one of the first death claims I paid. Right. And so going through that experience with the client and their family, it just brought tons of conviction about the work we do and how it really transforms lives.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Especially at that age, leaving somebody.
Yeah.
It's got to figure it out, It's a tough place to be.
Yep.
Wild. So you're a Christian. It says on your website all about you're a Jesus guy. I'm a Jesus guy.
Yeah.
Jesus is awesome, right? So how does that influence how you run your business?
Yeah. I love that. So that's a great question, because I think in times of adversity, it really matters what you believe, right? And, we have a quote that we teach on is adversity introduces you to yourself, right? Or your highest self. So I think faith plays just a huge part in my life, in our business's life. And, it may sound corny or cheesy, but it's like, what would Jesus do, right? What, if Jesus was here in my business, how would we go to work, right? How would we serve our clients? How would we lead, by example? So I think, my faith is just intertwined throughout the whole business and a part of me. But I see it as, who needs to see the light of Christ today, and we can be a vessel and just show them that light, right? We try not to bring up what we call taboo topics in discussions, right? Politics, religion, just things that are so out of our control, and people, may have their own beliefs and they may differ, right? And that may take us farther away from helping that person achieve what they want, right? But as you know, being in the Bible Belt, there's a lot of other believers where we're able to really press in on the biblical financial principles that are written in the Bible, right? to multiply generational wealth for many generations, to have your great grandkids to really remember what you've done, right? To diversify your investments. And so there's a lot of things. Hebrews 12:11, discipline is painful, but afterwards there's a fruitful harvest for those who are trained by it, right? So that's one of my favorite verses, just about life, discipline, even financials, right? It's hard to save and invest. It's hard to stay disciplined, right? It's hard to make decisions not based on your emotions, right? That take that discipline or those biblical principles. So just like that, it kind of comes out, and that's how our practice is aligned.
Yeah, good. I love it. Yeah, I think when we work with a lot of clients, one of the things we ask them is, what are your values?
Yep.
And the values communicate to potential clients. You either appreciate these values or maybe you don't, because every business isn't going to work with everybody, no matter pretty much how big you are. There's going to be somebody using some different service, and so instead of worrying so much about having the perfect thing that you think everyone wants to see, the more honest, authentic approach, which is what clients really appreciate when they're vetting someone or vetting a business like yours, is, do the values align with me? It doesn't even matter if they're Christians, because they just know how you're going to operate. You have a set of standards you're going to operate by. If they appreciate the standards and aren't believers, or are believers, of course, they're just going to say, sweet, I understand how this person's going to treat me. And I think that's wonderful. And I think most businesses, I wish the Christians and leadership were just more like in their bios. My bio talks about my faith, and I think that's a positive way to go, to just spread light, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. So awesome. Love it.
It's good.
What do you think the biggest hurdle is that you've gone through in order to grow your business to the size it is? Because you're a director, at Northwestern Mutual in Knoxville, Tennessee. So tell me about that. Like, how'd you get there? What was the hardest part of your journey?
Yeah. So I think any business, especially in the infancy and the adolescent stages, so let's just call that the first 5 to 10 years, 4% of businesses make it past 10 years, as you know. So I think the biggest challenge those first 10 years is, cash flow, organization, efficiency, systems. I love the quote, systems run businesses and people run systems. Right? And this is kind of a plug on you, Joe, but my first couple years, it kind of felt I was wearing all the hats, doing all the things, and I didn't have the infrastructure or those systems set up to really scale and grow, right? And so, I think that's very important for any business, scale, right? And the other biggest thing is, businesses may not be investing enough in the business, right? And I think that's whether you're self-employed or you have a LLC or S corp or W-2s, however the business is structured, you have to ask yourself, what's your return on investment for putting $1 into your business, right? Or into yourself, right? Your human capital. What is that return on investment? Because it's probably your best return on investment is yourself and your business. And how many dollars are you putting there, right? So a very healthy kind of percentage may be like 70-30 or 60-40. And so what all that means is, let's say we do 70-30, that means, are we reinvesting, or are our expenses, our operating expenses, are they 30% of our total revenue, right? And so that what I've learned personally is, as I'm trying to grow the business, there's, the early years, the expenses were kind of low and you're filling a lot of the revenue, but then there becomes a plateau point where you've really got to invest and change some things, and those expenses may rise, but that also can allow you to keep growing the top line or bottom line revenue.
Yeah, it's an investment, right? Like it's literally just an investment, and I think business owners really struggle with that idea that as you grow, you've got to pay a little bit of your margin, or sometimes a chunk of it, in order to get to the next high margin point in your business, because just like $1 in, $1, what's your ROI on that? I also think on your time, right? Where are your skills actually in your business that generate the most return on investment? People don't often look at what's 1 minute of their time worth, and then they'll do all these things, not doing the activity that they're most talented at.
That's right.
And it's because they don't have the systems in place
to
hire someone into that's replicable, because most business owners just have it right here.
Yep.
Between the ears. And it's great stuff. Whatever's between those ears that's gotten you that point is the reason you're there. Then trying to actually digest it and spit it out and then write it. So difficult for people. And if they don't do it, then they hit that plateau, and they're stuck at that plateau longer than they should, because now it's the ever urgent crisis, right? I've got to do this in order for revenue to stay high. If I go fix the systems, my revenue goes low because it's on me.
That's right.
It's the opposite place that any business owner wants to get to. And that's why a lot of business owners prematurely sell their business. They get frustrated, or their business just fails because they can't past that point. So yes, I love it.
Well said. Hire Joe.
Oh man. So audience is obviously mostly entrepreneurs, right? So what's your best advice financially for a business owner?
Yeah, that's good. So this wouldn't be personal advice or a fiduciary advice, but I think that for just any business owner, it would really just be kind of what you're saying is discipline, right? Whether it's discipline of savings, investing, discipline of taking time out of your business to work on your business, right? And so whether it's think time or whatever that may be, so I think it's just what you can't speed up is the experience, but what you can do is be aware of it and learn from it and seek mentorship, people that are doing it at a high level for a very long time in your space, and you can learn from them and actually implement, don't learn from their mistakes and take the action not to make those same mistakes, right? The writing's on the wall across every topic when you just look at history, right? And so I think the best advice is ask questions and listen.
Absolutely.
Be curious.
Yeah, be curious,
right?
100%.
So
absolutely. And make sure your profit is higher than your expenses.
Of course. Of course.
Like I tell people is I love the 70-30 you said. I think that's really great for service industries, but for some businesses too, like they just have more expenses,
that's
obviously,
right.
depending on the model. And I know you know that. And often what because I'm allowed to say this because I'm not under this different laws that you're under. But if your business is not having a net profit margin of 30%, you have a problem. You need to go fix it.
Very true.
If you're anything lower than that, somewhere there's a knowledge gap. Right? Maybe your branding's not on point to justify a higher price. Maybe your service isn't being communicated in the sales process well enough, or maybe you're just going after the wrong clients. They don't have the budget to pay for the quality of your service, and therefore you're taking on clients who are basically undercutting your price, leading to a poor profit margin.
That's right.
And so just, I think a lot of people get in, they start getting these clients, they start servicing them, and then they forget to say, is my offer good? Am I doing the right offer? Is there a better way to package this? And if they have somebody like yourself who's actually like sitting there looking at their business and they're seeing something, right? Because you're allowed to talk to them,
That's right.
not on a public forum. You can be like, hey, like your profit margin is so off, and we do that too when we work with clients. I just think it's so advantageous. I've had a financial advisor since I was 19. Because you just need somebody to like teach you stuff, because no matter how good you think you are with your finances, another person to like look over and tell you, that's odd, is so beneficial for you, and that's personal, business, whatever.
That's right.
If a business owner wants to manage their finances better, they want to grow their profitability, what are some specific things they could actually implement?
I'm glad you asked that, because I had this thought about the last question. So it goes back to awareness, but I think one thing to increase profitability is just understanding tax drag, right? Or understanding...
Explain tax drag.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone knows what that means. I mean, some people might.
So tax drag is just the drag of taxes, right? And so that may be we're overpaying in tax when we shouldn't be, right?
Okay.
And that could be an accounting issue.
Now, does this have to do with like rollover, is what you're saying? Rollover taxes?
No, this would be more on like income tax.
Okay.
Of how you're operating your business.
Okay.
Right.
Difference between an LLC and an S corp. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Explain the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot, and then some of this is where your CPA and attorneys come into place. But S corps is a corporation, and that's when you usually have, more than two, but usually got quite a few of W-2s. They're on payroll. They're on salaries or payroll. You're paying Medicare, Social Security, kind of all the things, right? And then, of course, your LLCs or sole proprietorships, everything's kind of passing through to your personal 1040, right? Or just to you as a person, like a self-employed, right? Or sole proprietor. So, and I kind of have a joke. It's a joke, and hopefully everyone will laugh, but it's actually very true. I'm a sole proprietor, right, or run a business my own, so I own 100% of it, but do I really? I have a business partner. Everyone has a business partner. It's called the IRS. Right? So that's the joke, haha.
Got me chuckling.
But that's right. So that's tax drag, right?
Yeah.
So it's really just understanding. You don't have to read a lot of the tax code or do a lot of IRS government research like we do.
Should someone switch? I mean, you should always have an LLC if you've been doing business more than 6 months and there's any opportunity to be sued or there's any liability, you should have an LLC. So that way, if you don't know this and you listen to this, you can't just be sued for your house and stuff like that. They can only do business.
That's right.
They can go after your business or whatever. But when should you switch to S corp? When's the tax implication too high? At what point do you have too many employees? What's the trigger that people should be looking forward to as they're planning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I try, in our advice, we try to stay away from rules of if this happens, then you should do this. Or we try to stay away from certainties in a world of uncertainties.
Yeah, when might it be advantageous? Where it's not like,
so...
when should someone look into it?
Yeah.
Because it might be different for their situation. But when should they start looking into it?
Yeah. Well, that's why I love what I do, because I can always say it depends, right? So it depends, and if you were a client, asking that same question, let's say you're an LLC now, but you're really thinking about how do I grow my firm, keep a good culture, keep the people you have and grow them, but also attract new great people to the team to scale. I think that's a valid, like if you have a lot of 1099s, that's a valid discussion with the CPA of what would it look like to go a corporate route or just W-2, because you're getting payroll tax deductions. There's just, all these eliminations.
And which one has payroll tax deductions? Sorry. Is that
just
anyone.
Yeah,
any corporate structure.
Yeah, anyone on W-2 would give you that payroll deduction, right?
Gotcha.
And so, I guess I would say this, right? Your attorney is really looking at your legal infrastructure and legal risk mitigation around your business and yourself personally. The CPA is looking, somewhat looking backwards at what you did the last year and helping you, file your tax return, but minimize tax, make sure you're taking advantage of all the deductions that you're already doing, depreciation, things like that. And so, I think everyone, we got to get clear on, is our CPA, are they just doing our taxes, or are they doing proactive tax planning, right? And I think from experience, the biggest hurdle or the biggest miss is just the proactiveness of the client or of the business owner. Because the CPAs, they're perfectly knowledgeable to do tax planning, but all humans, we procrastinate, and it's kind of done last minute. And guess what? When you're filing your taxes in April or October, for 2023 is gone. So now there's only so much things you can do. It would be pre-tax deductible retirement planning. There's only so many things you can do up until you file to help you out for the past year.
Right. Yeah.
Right? So that's why I said the word discipline, when what's one thing we could all improve on, right? And it's a football saying, but the 5 P's of life: proper preparation prevents poor performance. Right? Mm-hmm. So that's on the CPA side and tax planning. And then an advisor like me, we're helping really project and give financial advice for your future. Right? So I think all businesses and really all people should have a trusted advisory team that at a minimum consists of an attorney, a CPA or tax accountant, tax planner, and then an advisor.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, get the 3 people in your group.
Yep.
You'll do better. Love it. All right, these are good ones here. What are the biggest mistakes and common mistakes you see people making financially among normal entrepreneurs, business owners?
That's good. So I think the biggest mistake would just be doing nothing. Right, and that may look like just keeping everything in cash,
savings
in your
account.
business. That's
Thinking
right.
that a savings account's doing you anything.
That's right.
Yeah.
So and I think there's this kind of gets into my personal philosophy that a lot of clients get, but cash and banks are great for like operating capital of your business and how you
working
operate
capital.
it. An emergency fund, cool. Mm-hmm. But I ask my clients a question: if you had $1 million in the bank and you went to the bank today to get your $1 million out, do you think you could get the full $1 million out? Right?
Right.
And the answer is no, because the banks don't have it there in cash. Right? So if you look at a bank or a corporation or any business and you look at what do they do with their finances, right? They're really pushing them to assets that appreciate and spin off cash flow, tax efficient, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So, I think doing nothing is the worst thing anyone can do, right? Because we can't expect to grow if we don't change the input or what we're doing up front, right? So I think we've got to do something. And for everyone, I think that something starts with investing in yourself and education. Right? Mm-hmm. That could be, if you're a do-it-yourselfer, that could be you're doing all of the research out there and you're just learning and educating yourself, but then you're taking action, right?
Yeah.
And I think we get paid to help people take action to improve their lives, right? Because all the education's out there. You don't need me to go learn about all this stuff, right? But where people do need a trusted advisor is just to help them understand their emotional behavior and how do finances and life, how does that play a role in your actions or your behavior?
I think being a connector too. I mean, it's really who you know at the end of the day. If you can, like my gosh, can you imagine, like, if you knew no attorneys?
Yeah.
And you're just like, wow, I've got to go find an attorney and I got to vet people and are they going to screw me? And, there's a whole distrust, right, of trying to figure that out. And it takes you forever. Just having somebody that you know and trust, it's like a quick connection to a CPA, whoever, that team that we were just talking about. Right. And I also think, like, just for people who are on this, and I don't know what you use, but like we'll put some link in the description for this, but QuickBooks, like for example, if you put your money in QuickBooks for your business account, right, because it connects and you can like take payments and do all the things. QuickBooks does accounting, it has a checking account, but like if you put it in a little envelope in there, you get 5%. Versus a savings that gives you 0.1 or on the high end 1.3% some regional bank.
That's right.
And so just like even finding those places for your working capital to get 5% on the year,
that's right.
It's mitigating your expenses, it's helping mitigate inflation, just like do something like that. So go find something. Like I think we have a partnership with QuickBooks, so if anybody's on here and looking or whatever, there'll be some link that has 30% off or whatever for 3 months. So if somebody needs to get started on that, like go get 30% off. Like we don't get anything from it. We just have it because we want you to be better with your finances. But I think there's so much research you can do, and just figuring out where your money's held. Just start there. Like where is your money being held, and is it getting you any rate of return?
That's exactly right.
And then if you have too much? How do you know? If you have too much money in your savings, first off, congratulations.
Yeah.
But also for me, if I have too much in a savings account, I start to get nervous. I'm like, wow, I need to do something with this.
That's right.
Because I'm not maximizing the rate of return, whether that's putting it in some brokerage account or going real estate portfolio or investing back in your business, whatever, right? Like all of that comes through a good discussion with a financial advisor, your team, your spouse, whatever. I think that's huge. Okay, what advice do you have for someone feeling stuck in their life or career?
That's good. Pray. So I think that's always my advice is, pray when things are good, pray when things are bad. It's just, that's where your belief comes in. But I think if you're feeling stuck, if you're my client and let's say you say that, hey, I'm feeling stuck. Why do you feel stuck? Right? So I think there's a technique that we call the, peeling back the onion or the question behind the question. So you have to ask yourself, if you're feeling stuck, where do those feelings come from, right? But when I think of the word stuck, stagnant could be there, plateau could be there, right? I think when you feel stuck, there may be some frustration because you're not growing, right? And so I think that's where all of us have to take a step back off of the treadmill of life and really look ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, are we moving towards our purpose and what fulfills us? And I know you've talked to me about that. You're going to talk about it, fulfillment, in dopamine, and how those play a role in our life and our level of happiness, right? Because I think no one, we're all going to the same place, right? In 100 years, however long that is. And so it's what are we doing on this earth to leave it better than we found it, right? And that's my personal belief, and I think that goes in alignment with what you do for work, right? Because if you really think about it, you sleep 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours, so you're sleeping 30, 40 hours a week, you're working 30 to 40 hours a week, and then you're fitting other things in around that, right? And is that the way life should be, right? Or should we prioritize our faith, our family, and that fulfillment and purpose? And I think that's where just people struggle is how do I even know my purpose or my why, right? And I think back to when I started in the career, I just asked myself, why? Like, why do I want to work, right? Why do I want to be an advisor, right? And so I think just that simple question of why can help you pull back the layers of, okay, why are you feeling stuck? Is there anything we can do about it? Yes, then don't worry. Let's take the action and change, right? Is there anything we can do about it? No, then don't worry, right? So that would be my long tangented advice there on feeling stuck.
Control of controllables is really helpful to release anxiety. And I also think people if you think about the quote, comparison's the thief of joy, right? Feeling stuck is coming from a comparison to something.
That's right.
And it's unhealthy if the comparison is to somebody else.
Yep.
Right? If it's not a comparison to your purpose and your goals. Now, if your actions are out of line with your purpose or where you see yourself going, right? Then you'll probably feel stuck because you're comparing yourself compared to a standard you've created.
That's right.
But I think what the vast majority of people do is they compare themselves to other people's purpose, other people's goals, and it makes them feel stuck even if they're actually doing some great things in life.
That's right.
And I think that's the big problem is that comparison steals their joy. There's often so much to be thankful for, and it just comes down to what are you comparing yourself to?
That's right.
Why are you competing with anybody but yourself? And the reason people struggle with competing with themselves is they often don't know their own direction. They don't know their own direction, so they've made choices that seemed good to everybody else, but doesn't fit their fulfillment side of things. They followed the dopamine trail, right? They're doing things that used to be fun. They've made money. But there's a point where dopamine wears off. It happens. It's just, I don't know the psychological term for it. Maybe Gavin can look it up and pop it on the screen here. But when you do something that's new, it feels great. And once you've done it so many times, it turns into a habit. When something turns into a habit, it feels normal. In fact, when you drive home, if you've driven the same way over and over and over again, sometimes you'll daydream the whole way.
That's right.
And you'll wake up at your house.
That's right.
You were there. You were cognizant. You didn't fall asleep. But you don't remember the drive.
Yeah.
That's what happens with dopamine. Dopamine keeps going and going and going. And you feel plateaued because you can no longer get the dopamine release. And that's where the fulfillment has to be there. The fulfillment doesn't come if you compare yourself to others. To ask yourself deeply, why am I here? Why do I do anything? What do I really want to accomplish in the world? And most importantly, how do I want to impact others? Because I believe that you won't find a purpose in yourself. You'll find a purpose in impacting others.
That's right. Amen.
Boom. Boom, baby. Okay, last one.
We were just having fun. Getting started.
I know, all right? Last one here. What legacy do you want to leave behind?
Wow. Big question. So, I think there's a great quote is, legacy is not maybe what we leave behind as far as materials or values or anything like that. But for me, true legacy is carving, our names or our impact or our legacy on other people's hearts, right? And so another good quote is the trees, we sit in the shade of trees that someone else planted, right? So be the tree planter that shades many people to come, right? And so I think it goes back to my belief of community and of faith and what our values are, but that's what I want to leave, right? And anyone that I come into contact with, I want my legacy to be that they're better off because they had interactions with me, right? Good or bad. Not everyone's got to love us, right? But, and I'm very direct and very blunt, and that can be very good and healthy at times, right? But that's what I want to leave, is just leave the world a better place. And my big audacious dream is, just imagine a world where we solve issues of financial poverty, right? And it starts with financial literacy and people being the example and taking action, right? And then a concept of each one teach one, right? So when you're going the distance, reach your hand out and pull someone with you, right? So it really takes entrepreneurs and leaders to go make a change, right? And that's what our country's built upon, and I think we've got, now more than ever, we've all got to come together, to reshift or change this paradigm of victimhood and, and scarcity.
Yeah.
So that's
I think you're well on your way to achieving the legacy and impact. I love the way you run your business. And if you want to get in touch with Cullen, there's going to be a link in the description where you can reach out to him. And no matter how successful you think you are, if you just trust me, if you don't have the financial things down, don't feel bad. Don't compare yourself to where you think you can't get good at it or you're embarrassed. Just go talk to somebody. It can't hurt. And if you can figure that stuff out, it'll lead to a lot of the other things you want to do in life. So appreciate you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe on YouTube and our podcast platforms. Go check out Cullen on his website. Links in the description. And if you do want to get 30% off QuickBooks so you can store your money better, have better efficiency with your business, the accounting and all that stuff, click the QuickBooks link and sign up there. If you enjoyed the content of the conversation, the philosophies discussed, you can check out my book, The Problem with Potential, How to Stop Overthinking and Get Out of Your Own Way. Link in the description. It's on Amazon. It's on my website, joeignis.com. Appreciate you guys.